This is what every lead gen or service-based business needs to know about Google Ads. And the first one is conversion tracking is non-negotiable. It's always been the case that you need a high level of conversion tracking, but since Google has started to introduce more AI features, new types of campaigns, and obviously this is as a result of the way that people are searching is changing, this is even more important. Now, the gold level standard here is to have offline conversion tracking, and that is where you're feeding back in the actual form inquiries and phone calls that led to actual business, so actual money in your bank account. And thankfully, as we've been moving on the months and years of this becoming important, there are now a lot of integrations that are available inside of larger CRMs like HubSpot and Salesforce. And if you do have a CRM, I want you to go through and double check with your CRM to see what current integrations or what current even tools you can use with Zapier in order to get that data feeding in. And because that's such a big topic, at the end of this video, I will actually show you where you can watch a full interview that I had with Johan, who's one of my team members inside of Define Digital Academy. And we went through how you can go through and set this up and why it's so important. But I do want to talk a little bit to smaller businesses or businesses who are just starting with Google Ads and they may not yet have the budget or just the capability of using one of those CRM tools. Because there are some things that you can do inside of Google Ads straight away in order to lower the amount of spammy or poor quality leads. And it's really, really important to note that whenever you move into something like smart bidding, the reason for why you can see an increase in spammy leads is because if you don't have the correct high quality leads coming in, so you're starting to get a couple of spammy leads, they're generally going to be cheaper. If you then use smart bidding, Google will continue to really focus on those leads because it thinks it's doing a good job. So let me just quickly take you through some of the settings that you can do straight away in order to lower this. As I said, long term, you will need to go down some offline conversion tracking, but in the meantime, you can scale to quite a good level if you've got these settings in place. And there's three core things that you can do. And the first one is you want to go into your conversion settings. And then when you're in your conversion settings, you want to make sure that especially for form fills or for phone calls or anything like click to call or click to email, you have the count set to 1 and not every. And the reason for that is because if you are to get some spammy leads, if you have it set on every individual form fill will be counted as the same value conversion. Whereas if you have it set to 1, it's only the first conversion from that user that will count towards a conversion. So that's the first setting. And the second setting that you can use, and this is for business owners who are wanting to generate more phone calls, is that you want to go into your conversion settings. And then for the core duration, you'd want to be increasing that out to 90 seconds or 2 minutes or even longer. So what I want you to think through there is that when you get a call, about how long does it take for you to either book the service or go through the process of what you know is a high quality call. And if you increase that call duration, so let's just say it needs to be 90 seconds, you're saying to Google that only calls that last 90 seconds are considered a conversion. And that is a real easy way that you can go through and eliminate some poor quality calls. And the third one is, this is something we've started integrating into our own business. Rather than just doing form fills, we've gone to a platform like Typeform. And the benefit of Typeform, obviously it's a multiple step form. So you can go through and pre-qualify that lead to really make sure that this is the type of person that you want. And then what you can do from there is at the end of the Typeform, you can send them through to a thank you page, which then is the page which you track as the conversion. Now, those three options that I've given you, they are not the perfect solution, but they are much better than just having a simple form fill or click to call. And they can be a great addition to your business before you can go down that full offline conversion path. So the first thing is understand that conversion tracking is non-negotiable. Number two, you need to be really aggressive with your ad copy. One of the downfalls that I see with a lot of Google Ads campaigns, and especially in service-based businesses, is that they have, how can I say it, boring ad copy. And it's purely just keyword focus with a call now or we're number one, and that's it. You want to understand with your ad copy, you want to achieve a couple of things. One, you want to speak to your ideal client. And even if that means that you repel some people who are not your ideal client, you don't want someone who's never going to purchase your service, who's never going to ask for a quote. You don't want them clicking on your ad because you're just wasting money. So I'm a really, really big believer in having some qualifying statements in your ad copy. If you're only servicing businesses and you don't do home calls, say it. We did this with an IT company where we said, we are a business IT company that's only servicing this city. Especially true if you've got a higher price point. A great way of pre-qualifying is actually putting in there that your services start from say $99 or $150, whatever that price point is. And another thing I do want to highlight, especially with service-based businesses, is that you can't ignore the whole thing that essentially people still buy on emotion. Yes, you may be dealing with a really boring or a really essential service, but don't forget that sales process, that you still want to be able to build out some level of emotion. And what I'm also going to do at the end of this video is I'm going to show you where you can see some extra training on this. I asked an ad copy expert, his name is Will Wang, especially how this works for service-based businesses. So stick around to the end of the video and then I'll show you where you can watch that full interview. And the other thing that you want to do with your ad copy is that you want to consider taking someone on a journey. So you want to give them that very clear next step. The way that you want to think about is that the goal of the ad is not only to get them to click on your ad, but you also want to start pre-queuing them what you want them to do. And that's where we come to our third point, is that you want to optimize your landing pages. So you don't just want someone to click on your ad, you want to also build that emotion, but you also want to give them a real clear instruction of what you want them to do when they get to your landing page. And then when they get to your landing page, you want to really reinforce that. And what you want to be really clear on your landing page is that you need to have a clear headline, which is clearly linked back to their initial search inquiry. Remembering that for a lot of service-based businesses, you got people that are searching for a particular service that they want now or they need now. So you want to make sure that when they land on that landing page is that they are reassured that this is what you are offering them. Then right next to that headline, you also want to have a really clear call to action. So whether you want them to fill out an online quote or whether you want them to give them a phone call, you want to make sure that that is front and center as soon as they land on your landing page. Further than that, you also want to have some really clear authority markers. And this can be anything from Google reviews through to video reviews, through to qualifications. Now, the only thing I'd say with qualifications is I really like to focus on qualifications that you have that other businesses don't have. And then another thing that I would add here as well, try and avoid stock photos. And what I would say here is as well, especially if you are a service-based business, don't underestimate having some photos, even if they are lower quality photos than a high HD stock photo. You know, photos of you and your team on actual job sites or inside doing actual home calls or whatever the service you are providing. We've found a really big increase in conversion metrics just by adding in that touch. And what this really comes down to is really understanding that people want to connect with you and your brand. And by having a real face there rather than just a stock photo is another way of generating a high level of trust. Now, as we're through the ad copy and the landing pages, I know there's a lot to unpack there. And if you want some extra help with your Google Ads campaigns, at Define Digital Academy, we started it for one reason and one reason only, and that was to help business owners like you get greater success with Google Ads. And if your Google Ads campaigns are stuck and you just need some extra help to get to the next level, if you follow the link in the description below, you'll see some text which says, how can we help you? If you click on that link, it'll take you through a quick survey which you can fill out, and then we'll be back in touch to let you know how we can best help you grow your business with Google Ads. So we've gone through why conversion tracking is important. We've then also gone through your ad copy and your landing pages. And now let's talk about the different types of campaigns. When it comes to your account structure, I want you to start with search and then scale with campaigns like Performance Max. I know in this whole world where when you jump into Google Ads, it's going to be recommending for you to do Performance Max or AI Max or some other campaign that they'll release which has a max in it. But even despite all of that, I still in 2025 recommend that you start with search. And the reason for this is because this is going to give you the quickest feedback loop on what I was talking about before. What are your best converting headlines? What are your best converting landing pages? You can go through and make some changes to your headlines, to your offer, until you start to see those conversions come through. You do need to remember with campaigns like Performance Max, they only work when you've got a good level of conversion data. We recommend at least 30 conversions a month. And on top of that, they also only work when you've got, good conversion data actually feeding in. But for many businesses, you can get a lot of scale before you even need to start going down those Performance Max routes. So that's why we say to start with search. Now, when it comes to setting up your account structure with your search campaigns, what you want to be thinking about is two core things. Firstly, you want to have your services built either into separate ad groups or separate campaigns. And the determining factor on that, because both will work, really comes down to a couple of factors. And the first one being, what are the profit margins for each of those services? So if you run two core services, and let's just say you have an installation service, and then you also have a maintenance service, and the installation service may have a much higher profit margin. And if that's the case, I would generally recommend that you run them into two separate campaigns. And the reason for that is because in Google Ads, a core functionality, account budgets are set at the campaign level. So if you have a high margin and a low margin service in the same campaign, it can get really, really hard to split out the bidding strategies. Then on top of that, generally, not all the time, generally find those higher profit margin products will generally have a lower search volume or a higher CPC. So once again, you can have better budget controls that work for your business. The second thing that you also need to think about is how you want to target your locations. If you've got multi-locations, because you're a franchise model, you may need to run separate campaigns based around your franchise areas. Or even if you're not a franchise model and you may service the whole of your country, you still may want to break it out into different states or different cities, because you may have different seasonal factors, or you just may have different population factors that make more sense for you to better control your budgets based around those population or those seasonal factors. Once again, when it comes to this, there's nothing that's right and wrong. It really comes down to what works for you and your business. Let's now jump into a screen share so that I can show you a way that we've structured a lead generation business. This is a company that's based in the US, and I'll show you the different options that we've gone through. And I really hope that this gives you a real practical picture of one way that you can structure an account for success with Google Ads. What I want to show you in through here, I have had to blur out the campaign names just to protect the client in here, but I've included as much information as I can. And what I'm also showing you here is a long-term value. So we're looking from January 2024 up until July. You can see back in January, they were spending 16,000 or 16.5. This January, we got it up to 22,000, and then it's now up at 28. And what we've been able to do at the same time is also increase their conversion metrics. But what I do want to show you in through here is that you can see when we first took on this account, they weren't running offline conversions. That's when we've added it in through here. And it's really, really allowed us over time, as you can see from here, May last year for 20,000, they got a conversion value of 36. For May this year, for pretty much the same spend, we doubled their conversion value. So it really, really does allow you to go through and grow. I just want to show you the way that we structured this out. The way that we had started with this when they first came to us, they were only running 2 national campaigns. We then added in a national, this is for the US market, Performance Max campaign, and that is where the vast majority of the spend does happen. But what we have started to do this year, we've only done this over the last 4 to 5 months, is we've started to break out some state-based campaigns in the US market. And the reason for why we have done this is if you go through and have a look at some of the CPCs, you can see here, CPCs are ranging from $5 up to $8, but also with the cost per conversion metrics, we're ranging between, $60 down to $35. So what this has allowed us to do is it's allowed us to put through some better conversion metrics, and that's where we really started to see this second bump of scale. So the first bump of scale came through by being able to add in Performance Max. The second bump of scale came through by us adding in those extra targeted search campaigns. Now, the reason why I want to show you that account setup is because I just don't want you to go through and blindly follow that structure. It really comes back to really knowing what works for your business and really knowing the different levers that you want to factor in on your business. But a couple of things I do want to really, really point out is that, especially if you start to add in different location-based search campaigns, that you do want to make sure, and I want you to remember this guiding principle, that you only ever want one campaign targeting the same keywords in the same location to the same audiences. Now, the way that we've done it in that account for our Performance Max campaign, that is set to only target new customers. And then where we've added in a state-based campaigns, they're the only campaigns that they're seeing for the search ads. And then when we add in that new state-based campaign, we take it away from the nationwide search-based campaign. So there are a couple of things you need to think about there, but if you can remember that rule of you only ever one campaign targeting the same campaign, targeting the same keywords to the same locations to the same audiences, that's a good guide for you to see success with Google Ads. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Remember, if you do need some extra help with Google Ads, just follow that link in the description below of how we can help you. It'd be an absolute pleasure, and we can help in all ways, from courses through to different coaching options. The other thing now, as promised, I do remember that I gave out 2 shout outs to 2 really, really important videos. If you need to learn more about offline conversions, I want you to go through and watch this video right here. Or if you'd like to see some real life examples of ad copies for service-based businesses, I want you to go watch this video right here. See you next time.